Today I want to explore the nature of holiness. To do that, we need to be honest about our humanity. I recently read a delightful book entitled Rejoicing in Christ, in which the author, Michael Reeves, says, "Even for Christians, overlooking Jesus is easier than falling off a log, it seems. We instinctively think of God, life, grace, reality with rarely a pause to have Jesus shape what we mean by those things." Those words are true for me, and I spend my days conversing with Mormons and Christians, helping them identify with those words and then surprising them with the power of considering Jesus. Since Paul says Jesus by his Calvary love holds together all of life, we should connect holiness to Jesus. But Reeves' words mean we easily overlook Jesus when we think about holiness. Since Jesus says all his ways are light and easy, have you experienced holiness as light and easy? If not, could it be you are not pausing to have Jesus shape your perspective? If you do not pause to have Jesus shape your perspective, you will think like the Mormons who surround me. Mormonism overlooks Jesus by definition because their mantra seems to be, God desires progress, not perfection. Those words pressure you to not consider Jesus as your standard. When you overlook Jesus, you must create your own standard because you always use a standard to measure life. Those words lead Mormons to see holiness as a process of slowly becoming more like Jesus. That means they see holiness as a goal they are working toward. Do you agree with Mormons? Do you see holiness as a process of you gradually improving to be more like Jesus every day? If so, is it obvious how your perspective on holiness overlooks Jesus? Here's how. The word holiness means to be set apart for God's purpose. The world is all about overlooking Jesus and not considering him to be both the standard to measure by, as well as him in his sin-bearing death to resolve all sin. In Hebrews, we read that holiness is required to see God. Peter commands Christians to be completely holy all the time as Jesus is holy. That means no fudging allowed, no process of slowly improving allowed. How then can we be holy? Paul says Jesus is all our holiness. That means God's purpose is for you to experience life by considering Jesus in his Calvary love. That is true holiness. Our tendency to overlook Jesus blinds us to the simplicity and easiness of holiness. If Jesus is all your holiness, then holiness is not a process of you improving, but rather is your moment-by-moment experience of considering Jesus and not overlooking him. When you consider Jesus properly as Calvary love, you participate with him in life. You have a holy moment, and you do good and not evil. When you overlook Jesus, you participate with the world. You have an unholy moment, and you get impatient or worse. Holiness is a powerful experience of the presence of Jesus, which bears good fruit. I lead Mormons to measure by Jesus to experience the freedom and power of his presence. Welcome to my Conversations with Mormons.